Hi, fourth graders. Today's lesson is 14-4, Changing Customary Units. Our learning goal says, I can convert between customary units. What this means is that you are changing from one unit to another using the customary system. Let's review a little bit. This chart summarizes what we learned so far. One measurement that's not as familiar to you is the teaspoons, tablespoons, and fluid ounces. Please take a moment to notice those at the top of the chart. If you have 1 fluid ounce, that's the same as 2 tablespoons, so 2 large spoons. 1 tablespoon is equal to 3 teaspoons, so 3 smaller spoons, if you were to think about your silverware. Also notice that capacity tends to be the trickiest to do conversions because there are so many different units, whereas length and weight tend to be a little bit easier. This chart tells us how many of one particular unit is equivalent to another. You'll notice that unfortunately in the customary system, there are lots of different numbers for conversions. First, let's take a look at length. Length often means the amount of distance between 2 points. From smallest to greatest, I have inches, feet, yards, and miles. You saw the brief conversions for these in 14-1. The next is capacity, or how much space or volume is within a particular item. From least to greatest, we have teaspoon, tablespoon, fluid ounce. Then we have cup, pint, quart, and gallon. And last but not least, we have weight. Another way of saying that is mass, or how much matter is within a certain item or object. From smallest to largest, we have ounces, pounds, and tons. This lesson can be challenging, so I recommend that you have this table in front of you. Whether you copy it down into your notes, you use it on the top of the reteaching page, or you find it on your computer. Okay, much like we've used in other lessons, there are certain algorithms to help us actually do the converting. These steps need to be recorded in your notes. First, you need to ask yourself, are you going from a smaller unit to a bigger unit, or are you going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit? That will help you determine whether or not you are going to multiply or divide. If you are going from a smaller unit to a bigger unit, you are going to divide. If you are going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, you are going to multiply. It seems like you would do the opposite, but you'll notice a particular pattern when you are changing customary units. Your third and final step is to check your work and check your units. Let's do a couple of example problems to help you with changing customary units. So first, I'm going to start with length. Let's say that I have a total of 48 inches. I want to convert it into feet. So notice, I'm going to look first at what unit I'm starting in, inches, and what unit I'm ending in, feet. So in this particular problem, I have small to big. I am now going to use my chart to help me determine by what I'm multiplying or dividing. So small to big means to divide. I'm going to look for the conversion. In this case, there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So I'm going to divide by 12. 48 divided by 12 is 4. The last step that I need to do is to check my work and check my units. So let's think about this. If I have 48 inches and I'm going from that smaller unit to feet, which is a larger unit, it makes sense that I would have fewer of those units. I'm also going to use my conversion table to check. I am in fact actually going to be dividing by 12. My units and my work look good. I'm all set. Let's try another example using length. This time around, I'm going to convert from a larger unit to a smaller unit. So in this particular example, I'm going to start with 18 yards, and I want to convert it into feet. So because I'm going from a big unit to a small unit, I'm going to multiply. In other words, you need more of the small unit to equal the same amount of the big unit. So in this case, I'm converting from yards to feet. So I look at my conversion table and I notice there are 3 feet in 1 yard. So I'm going to multiply times 3. If you don't recall, you can always use my work to help you. I'm going to use my standard algorithm. 8 times 3 is 4. Carry the 2. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. So 18 yards would be the equivalent of 54 feet. Now I'm going to check my work. Let's see. I went from a big unit to a small unit, so I know that I'm going to multiply. I multiplied by the appropriate number, and my units look correct, so I'm all set. Let's try another example with capacity. For capacity, you're going to notice there are a lot of units. Those units may seem confusing, but with a little bit of practice, you'll be able to do this just fine. So let's take a look. In this example, I want to convert from quarts into pints. So I'm going to notice on my conversion chart which one says quarts and pints. Here we go, quarts and pints. Quarts are larger than pints, so I'm going from a big unit to a small unit, which means I am going to actually need to multiply. If I have 16 quarts and there are 2 pints in 1 quart, 16 times 2 is 32. So 16 quarts is the same as 32 pints. Now, to help us understand how some of these capacity units work, I'm actually going to use the same starting point, 16 quarts, and this time around I'm going to change it into gallons. So I'm no longer going to be multiplying, instead I'm going to be dividing because I'm going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit. So notice there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon, so I'm going to divide by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Here's the neat thing about measurement and converting. If 16 quarts is equal to 32 pints, that also means that 32 pints is the same as 4 gallons. Those are equivalent as well. Sometimes you also might notice that certain problems are going to ask you to convert from units that don't actually have equivalencies on the chart. So you have to take 2 steps in one instead of 1. So for instance, if I wanted to try to change from cups to quarts, I might actually need to take 2 steps. So first, I'm still going to ask myself, am I going from small to big or big to small? Well, cups are smaller than quarts, so I'm going from small to big. So I'm going to be dividing. Next, I notice in my table that I don't actually have cups to quarts as a conversion. So I might need to change it into a different unit first. So let's say I have 16 cups. Instead of going right to quarts, I'm actually going to change it to whatever unit is in between them. So using my chart, I notice that 16 cups can be changed into pints first. So 16 cups. If I'm going from cups to pints, I'm still going from small to big, so I'm going to divide. 1 pint is equal to 2 cups, so I'm going to divide by 2. So 16 cups is the same as 8 pints. Now I can change pints into quarts. Same thing. Pints are smaller than quarts. I'm still going small to big. So this time around, I'm going to look to see there are 2 pints in 1 quart. So 8 pints divided by 2 would be 4 quarts. It just so happens that in my chart, it also shows me that 4 quarts is 1 gallon. So technically, 16 cups is also equal to 1 gallon. The thing that I really want you to remember as you're practicing is that just like long division, sometimes math skills at first seem really complicated, but after you begin to practice the algorithms over and over and you start to apply it to different problems, you'll actually find that these are not very complex skills. Okay, last but not least, let's use weight for conversions. Let's say I have 64 ounces and I'd like to change that into pounds. So first, am I going from big to small or small to big? I'm going from small to big, so I'm going to be dividing. I use my chart to look to see what I'm dividing by. Well, there's 16 ounces in 1 pound, so I'm going to divide 64 by 16. 64 divided by 16 is 4. So 64 ounces is equivalent to 4 pounds. I did my multiplication or division. Now let's check. Yep, small to big, so divide. 64 divided by 16 is 4. So everything looks good. Let's try one more. This time around, let's say I have 4 tons. I want to change 4 tons into pounds. Well, this time around, I'm going from big to small, so I'm going to multiply. And I know there are 2,000 pounds in 1 ton, so I multiply by 2,000. 4 times 2 is 8, and I attach 3 zeros. So 4 tons is the same as 8,000 pounds. I did my multiplication or division, check my work, big to small, I multiply, I have the correct conversion, so I'm all set. Like I said before, this skill does take time and it does take practice. So if you get stuck, feel free to drop by a virtual office hour and we can go over it more. All right, everyone, here's your math joke for today. It's an advanced one, so get ready.
Hey guys, why do plants hate math? Because it gives them square roots.